It is February 19th, 2026. A cold, gray morning in London. The kind of morning where the city feels quiet, too quiet. Inside Buckingham Palace, the phones started ringing before sunrise. Staff members were rushing through marble hallways, doors were closing fast. And somewhere deep inside the private quarters of the most famous building in the world, a king was making a decision that would change everything. Prince Andrew had just been arrested, not rumored, not investigated. Arrested, and in that moment the House of Windsor, a family that has survived wars, abdications, and world-changing scandals, was facing something it had never faced before. A complete and total collapse of trust, from the inside. But here is what the news cameras did not show you. While the world was watching Andrew being taken away, something far bigger was happening behind those palace walls. King Charles, the man who waited 73 years to wear the crown, was sitting in his private study. And he was signing away his power, not officially, not with a public announcement, but quietly, deliberately, and with the full knowledge that he had no other choice. He was handing final authority to his son, Prince William. Now stop and think about what that really means. This is a king, a man who spent his entire life waiting for this moment. And he is giving it up not because he wants to, but because the scandal is too big, the crisis is too deep, and there is only one person in that palace who has the strength, the strategy, and the iron will to handle what comes next. And that person is William. But here is where the story gets complicated, because there is someone else in that palace who was not informed about this decision. Someone who believed she still had power. Someone who woke up that morning thinking she was Queen Consort of the United Kingdom. Her name is Camilla, and when she found out what Charles had done, sources say the atmosphere in the palace turned ice cold. This is not just a family argument. This is not just palace gossip. What you are watching right now is a full transfer of royal power, happening in real time, with a king who is too sick and too tired to fight, a future king who is done waiting, and a queen consort who is suddenly realizing that her time is running out. And it all started long before February 19th, 2026. It started with a young prince who watched his mother cry, a boy who made a silent promise, and a man who has spent 20 years waiting for the right moment to keep it. That moment is now. If you want to understand exactly how we got here, who made what moves, who said what behind closed doors, and what happens next, stay with us. Because this story is just getting started. And trust me, what comes next will shock you. Hit subscribe right now so you do not miss a single update as this royal crisis continues to unfold. Because what we are about to show you in the next section, the real reason William has been preparing for this moment for over a decade, is something the palace never wanted you to know. Let's go back. Not to 2026, not to Andrew's arrest, not even to Charles becoming king. Let's go back to a young boy sitting in a church. September 6, 1997. Westminster Abbey, the whole world is crying. A 15-year-old Prince William is walking behind his mother's coffin, head down, eyes forward, making a promise that nobody could hear. That promise was simple. This will never happen again. Not the loss, not the pain, but the system that allowed it. The palace that protected the wrong people. The family that chose reputation over truth. The institution that let Diana be destroyed while it looked the other way. William never forgot that day. And everything he has done since, every careful move, every quiet strategy, every moment of patience has been building toward one thing, taking control and cleaning house. But here is what most people do not realize. William did not just wake up in 2026 and decide to take power. This has been a 20-year plan, and the first real test came in 2019. You remember the interview. Prince Andrew sitting across from a BBC journalist, sweating, stumbling, trying to explain his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, trying to explain why he felt no regret. The whole world watched in horror, but William did not just watch, he acted. Sources close to the royal family say that within days of that interview, William went directly to both Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles with a message that was not a suggestion. It was a warning. He told them Andrew needed to be removed. Immediately. Completely. No half measures, no quiet agreements, no protecting him behind palace walls. He told them that if they did not act fast, the scandal would spread. He told them that public trust in the monarchy was already hanging by a thread. And he told them something that nobody else in that room had the courage to say out loud. If you protect a scandal, you become part of the scandal. Now stop and think about how much courage that took. This was not William talking to a friend. This was a grandson telling his grandmother, the Queen of England, that her son needed to go. This was a nephew telling his father that family loyalty had to come second to the survival of the crown. And what happened? They ignored him. Queen Elizabeth wanted to protect her son. Charles felt torn. The palace advisors whispered about managing the situation quietly, and William once again was told to be patient, to trust the system, to wait, so he waited. But he did not stop watching. For the next 6 years, William built something, quietly, away from cameras, away from headlines. He built a network of trusted advisors inside the palace. He studied how the monarchy's finances worked. He learned which courtiers were loyal to the institution and which ones were loyal only to themselves. He watched how decisions were made behind closed doors, and he noted every single mistake. He also built something else, something even more important. He built a partnership with Kate. Together, William and Kate created something the monarchy had not seen in a very long time. A true united front. A team that thought not just about today, but about the next 50 years of the crown. And when Charles became king in 2022 and then got sick in 2024, William was ready. Royal sources noted that William had been effectively running key decisions for months before Andrew's arrest. The eviction from Royal Lodge, the removal of titles, the complete separation of Andrew from any royal function. These were not Charles's decisions alone. These were William's strategies, executed with his father's approval but driven by his son's determination. Here is what makes this even more powerful. William was not angry when he did these things. He was not emotional. He was not seeking revenge. He was cold, calculated, precise. Like a man who had been waiting for exactly this moment and knew exactly what to do when it arrived. But here is the part that nobody is talking about. Because while William was building his plan, somebody else in the palace was building theirs. Somebody who had spent just as many years waiting, just as many years being patient, just as many years telling herself that her time would come. And now, just as William is finally taking control, she is fighting back. The question is, does she have any real power left to fight with? The answer to that question involves a friendship that goes back 50 years. A betrayal that Diana fans have never forgotten, and a decision that Camilla made just weeks ago that may have sealed her fate inside the palace forever. If this story is making you see the royal family in a completely new way, hit that like button right now. You are not just watching palace drama. You are watching history being made. And in the next section, we are going to show you exactly who Camilla really is, not the version the palace wants you to see, but the real story, the one they tried to hide. Let's talk about Camilla, not the version you see at official ceremonies. Not the woman in the expensive coat waving from the palace balcony. Not the carefully managed image that the royal PR machine has spent 20 years trying to build. Let's talk about the real Camilla. Because if you want to understand why William is fighting so hard to push her out, and why so many people inside the palace are quietly cheering him on, you need to understand exactly how she got here. And what she has been doing since she arrived. It starts in the 1970s. Camilla Shand was not supposed to be part of the royal story. She was a young socialite from a good family, charming, confident, and completely captivating to a young Prince Charles. They fell in love, or at least Charles fell in love, hard, completely, in the way that only very lonely people fall in love. But here is what the palace history books do not like to say out loud. Camilla chose someone else. She married Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973, and Charles, heartbroken and under enormous pressure from the palace to find a suitable bride, eventually married Diana Spencer in 1981. You know what happened next? What you might not know is what was happening at the same time. Because while Charles and Diana were standing at that altar, while the whole world was watching a fairytale wedding, Camilla was already back in Charles's life. The affair had never really ended. It had just gone quiet for a while, and Diana knew. She knew from almost the very beginning. Sources close to Diana said she once found letters from Camilla inside Charles's diary before their wedding. She confronted him. He denied it. And then she walked down that aisle anyway into a marriage that was broken before it even started. Now think about what that means for William. This is not ancient history to him. This is his childhood. This is watching his mother cry in empty hallways. This is overhearing arguments behind closed doors. This is being a small boy who does not understand why his family is falling apart, but knowing deep in his bones that something is very wrong. And at the center of that wrongness, there was always Camilla. But here is where the story gets even darker, because Camilla was not just a passive figure in Diana's destruction. According to royal sources and longtime palace watchers, Camilla was strategic. She maintained her friendship with Sarah Ferguson, and through that friendship, information about Diana's private plans, her emotional state, and her movements would sometimes find their way back to people who should not have had it. One comment from a longtime royal watcher that stopped thousands of people in their tracks said something very simple. Sarah betrayed Diana. She told Camilla Diana's plans. Yes, that happened. That is not just a feeling. That is a belief shared by hundreds of thousands of Diana supporters worldwide. And it is exactly why William considers the Camilla and Sarah friendship not just a personal problem, but a direct security risk to the crown. But wait, because it gets worse. Fast forward to 2025. Camilla is now queen consort. She has the title. She has the palace. She has everything she spent 30 years waiting for. And according to sources close to the royal household, she wanted more. Much more, reports began circulating that Camilla had privately expressed a desire to have her face placed on British pound notes, a privilege reserved only for the actual monarch, not the consort, not the wife, but the king or queen themselves. Charles reportedly refused, because Camilla is not head of state. She is queen consort. There is a massive difference. And the fact that she even asked, the fact that she believed she deserved that level of recognition, tells you everything you need to know about how she sees herself inside that palace. She does not see herself as a supportive partner. She sees herself as an equal power. And that is exactly what William cannot allow. Because here is the truth that the palace has never said publicly, but that everyone inside those walls understands perfectly. When Charles dies, and with his ongoing cancer treatment that day may come sooner than anyone wants to admit, Camilla gets nothing. No title, no official role, no seat at the table. The moment William becomes king, Camilla becomes a private citizen. She loses her staff, she loses her protection, she loses her platform, she loses everything she spent her entire life fighting for. And she knows it, which is why sources say she has been making quiet moves, trying to cement her influence while she still has access to the king, trying to build relationships with courtiers who will remember her when the transition happens, trying to position herself as indispensable. But William has been watching every single move. And in late February 2026, he decided he had watched long enough. He called her out, directly, privately, with a clarity that left no room for misunderstanding. But to understand exactly what William said, and why it hit Camilla so hard, you first need to understand the full story of the friendship at the center of this entire crisis. The friendship between Camilla and Sarah Ferguson. Because this is not just about two women who like each other. This is about a bond built on shared secrets. A bond that, according to William, is now actively threatening the future of the British monarchy. And the evidence he used to make that case is something the palace hoped would never become public. If you have been following the royal family for years and feel like you are finally getting the full picture, share this video right now. Someone you know needs to see this. And in the next section, we are going to show you the exact moment this friendship became a weapon, and why Diana's ghost is right at the center of it. To understand why William is so determined to cut Camilla off from Sarah Ferguson, you have to go back to a time when three very different women were all living inside the same royal world. And the story of what happened between them is one of the most painful, most personal, and most carefully hidden chapters in modern royal history. Diana Spencer entered the royal family in 1981 as a 19-year-old girl who had no idea what she was walking into. She was kind. She was warm. She was desperately trying to fit into a world that had its own rules, its own codes, and its own loyalties. And in those early years, she reached out to the people around her looking for friendship. One of those people was Sarah Ferguson. Fergie, as everyone called her, became one of Diana's closest companions in the late 1980s. They laughed together. They played pranks together. They supported each other through the loneliness and the pressure of royal life. Diana trusted her completely. And that trust, according to royal watchers who have studied this period for decades, was one of the most costly mistakes Diana ever made. Because Sarah Ferguson was not just Diana's friend. She was also close to Camilla, very close. And sources say that information about Diana, her emotional struggles, her private plans, her secret conversations, would sometimes travel from Sarah to Camilla in ways that Diana never knew about and never consented to. Think about what that means. Diana was confiding in someone she believed was her best friend. She was sharing her fears, her strategies, her most private thoughts. And according to those who were watching from the inside, some of that information was finding its way to the one woman in the world who had the most reason to use it against her. This is not just old gossip. This is a wound that has never healed. And William grew up watching his mother be hurt by people she trusted. He grew up seeing firsthand what happens when loyalty is fake and friendship is used as a weapon. So when the Epstein files were released by the United States Department of Justice, and Sarah Ferguson's name appeared in those documents, William did not see it as a separate issue. He saw it as the final confirmation of something he had known for a very long time. Sarah Ferguson is not safe. And anyone who maintains a close friendship with Sarah Ferguson is not safe either. The specific emails in the Epstein files showed Sarah reaching out to Epstein during a time when her businesses were struggling, appearing to ask for financial help. Now, to be absolutely clear, there is no evidence that Sarah Ferguson did anything criminal. But in William's world, this is not about criminal charges. This is about image. This is about association. This is about the message it sends to the British public. and to the world when the Queen Consort of the United Kingdom is seen maintaining a warm and close friendship with someone whose name appears in one of the most toxic scandal files in modern history. And Camilla refused to let go. She told people around her that she had been friends with Sarah since the 1970s, that she was not going to abandon a 40-year friendship because of guilt by association, that it was unfair and unnecessary and that William was being too harsh. But William was not interested in fairness. He was interested in survival, the monarchy's survival, and he made that absolutely clear when he sat down with Camilla and laid out exactly what he expected from her. Sources say the conversation was not warm, it was not gentle, it was not the kind of conversation where two people find a comfortable middle ground. William told Camilla that the monarchy could not afford any more connections to scandal. He told her that the days of protecting personal relationships at the expense of the institution were over. And he told her that if she could not publicly distance herself from Sarah Ferguson, he would use the authority that Charles had given him to begin reducing her role, her access, and her influence inside the palace. Camilla was furious. People close to her say she felt humiliated. She felt that William was treating her like a staff member rather than a queen. She felt that after everything she had been through, after all the years of public hostility and tabloid attacks and waiting in the shadows, she deserved more respect than this. But here is the thing that Camilla seems to have forgotten, or perhaps she never fully understood it. William is not doing this because he dislikes her personally. He is not doing this to get revenge for Diana. He is doing this because he has watched the monarchy bleed for 30 years and he is not going to let it bleed anymore. Not for Andrew, not for Sarah, and not for Camilla. But while this confrontation between William and Camilla was happening behind closed doors, something else was building on the other side of the palace, something more personal, more emotional, and in many ways more dangerous to Camilla's position than anything William had said to her directly, because Kate had entered the room. And when Kate enters a room, everything changes. If you are just now realizing how deep this story really goes, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications right now. Because what is happening between Kate and Camilla inside that palace is something that goes far beyond strategy and politics. This is personal. This is powerful. And this is the part of the story that Camilla never saw coming. There is a moment in every power struggle when the talking stops and the real decisions begin. When someone looks across the room and says, clearly and without any softness, this is how it is going to be. That moment happened in late February 2026. And the person who delivered it was not a politician. It was not a palace advisor. It was not even the king. It was William. And what he said to Camilla that day changed the royal family forever. But before we get to the exact words, you need to understand the context. Because by the time William sat down with Camilla for that conversation, the situation inside the palace had already reached a breaking point. Charles was exhausted. His cancer treatment was taking a visible toll. People who saw him in private during this period described a man who was struggling. A man who was still showing up, still trying to perform his duties, but who was clearly running on reserve energy. The weight of Andrew's arrest, the media storm, the public pressure, and his own physical battle had left him with very little fight. And into that vacuum, two very different people had stepped forward. On one side was William, focused, strategic, moving with the kind of quiet authority that comes from years of preparation. On the other side was Camilla, defensive, angry, feeling more threatened with every passing day as she watched the younger generation take over spaces that she had considered her own. The tension between them had been building for weeks. Every meeting was uncomfortable. Every shared public appearance was carefully managed to hide the frost underneath. And then came the moment that could no longer be avoided. William requested a private meeting with Camilla, no staff, no advisors, no carefully worded palace statements prepared in advance, just the two of them, in a room, with the truth. Sources close to the palace say William came to that meeting with a very clear message. He told Camilla that King Charles had formally given him authority over all decisions related to the monarchy's reputation and its response to the Andrew scandal. He told her that this was not a temporary arrangement. This was a recognition that the future of the crown depended on decisions being made by the next generation, not the current one. And then he told her what he needed from her specifically. He needed her to publicly and clearly distance herself from Sarah Ferguson. Not quietly, not privately, publicly. He needed the world to see that the Queen Consort understood the severity of the situation and was willing to put the monarchy first. Camilla pushed back, hard. She told William that she had done nothing wrong, that her friendship with Sarah had nothing to do with Andrew's crimes, that she was being asked to punish an innocent person simply because of association. She reminded William that she had supported the monarchy through decades of public hostility, that she had stayed quiet when people attacked her, that she had given up her privacy, her freedom, and her reputation to stand by Charles and serve the crown. And she told William, in words that sources describe as direct and emotional, that she deserved better than being given ultimatums by someone who had not yet even worn the crown. The room went very quiet after that. And then William said something that nobody in that palace has forgotten since.